Rebecca's presentation is titled, "We Need to Talk About How We Talk About Work." Rebecca Wack is the Assistant Director of Digital Imaging at New York Public Library, serving New York Public Library's research centers. The Digital Imaging Services team works to ensure that digital surrogates of special collections and archive materials, everything from illuminated manuscripts to Broadway set models, can be made accessible to all. Rebecca holds a master's in film and media studies from the University of Rochester and a certificate in film and media preservation from the L. Jeffrey Selznick School of Film Preservation. She is neurodivergent, a fan of MGM movie musicals from the late 1930s to the early 1960s, and spends an inordinate amount of time and money thinking about acquiring and building Lego sets. All right, Rebecca, it's all you.
I'm so pumped that you read all of that. Like, you have no idea. It filled me with joy. Hi, I'm Rebecca Wack. I apparently work for the Smithsonian now, so that's super cool. I'm hyped. Can't wait to move in. Let me try pushing this button and see what it does. Cool. There's a delay. So that's me, dinosaur and all. So my pronouns are she, her. I do all the things that Pete just said, including the Legos. And I'm going to give you, this highly technical audience, a wholly non-technical talk about talking about work, with the idea being the inverse of that. So getting better at talking to non-technical people about the things that we do. I have been told that I'm good at fundraising, which is cool, dig that. Nothing in here backs that up, so you'll just have to take my word for it. And DT asked me to talk about it, and I wanted to attempt something useful and not just a case study and me securing millions of dollars, although catch me after, we'll talk. So what I can talk about is, so I am neurodivergent, as Pete said, and I have learned over the past few years that the reason I'm really good at my job, at least I think so, is because my brain just works differently. So there are things that I do that come very naturally to me that seem to take people by surprise. So I have attempted to write some of that stuff out. There are also some Michael Scott memes in here, and I did make one iceberg graphic, but not a full meme because I just didn't have the time. So this is the disclaimer I give before everything. I'm gonna give you lots of really circuitous routes to statements that probably weren't worth all of the words it took to get there. If anything I say is confusing, please say something. Now I'm holding you accountable. That gets me off the hook. It's pretty cool. So if you don't get something, it's totally your fault. Don't you feel bad? Okay, let's go. Let's do this thing. I cannot read from up here, so it's gonna be a good time. Cool. Icebergs, I Googled them. So if anyone's not familiar with iceberg theory, essentially, an iceberg has 10% of its mass above the water. That's what you can see, but the rest of the iceberg is supported by what's below. That's what you can't see. So if you look at this very well done, definitely not Google word art created meme here, the idea is, anywhere in cultural heritage, really anywhere in general, there's a ton of invisible labor supporting the operations that are seen in front of the public. And it can be incredibly hard to get anyone to understand why what you do is complicated, valuable, requires hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in funding, ongoing funding that never ends, just a bottomless well of a money pit. I clock some of the issue there as we spend so much time talking to our colleagues who do the same work as us that it can be really hard to realize that the people outside of our little pot of offices don't actually have any idea what we're doing. So a thing that I do is tell stories about the work that happens in our lab. And it seems to have helped me build a little bit of a cult is the wrong word, like a club. Um, I recruit people to be interested in the work that we do and talk to other people about it. And so we're running like a network marketing MLM pyramid scheme type of stewardship in my program, but it seems to be working out pretty well. So essentially, I hate the way I worded this, but it's all good. It's our job to educate people about what we do. If we're not going to do that, we don't get to be salty about them not caring about what we do. That's kind of my stance. So it's just Michael Scott from here on out. God, that's small. So essentially, anytime I go into any conversation, I over-prepare extensively, and it is very difficult to put that into words whatsoever. Easiest example I can give you is if you invite me to a restaurant, I will Google it, I will look at their menu, I will look at pictures inside in the Google reviews, I will read all of the Google reviews, and it's because I need to think about, is it a loud space? Are they gonna have foods that I'm cool with the textures of? Is there gonna be live music, which happened with Peter and me when we got a drink and I had to have them open a new section of the restaurant because the band started. So my brain gets stuck on stuff, and in order to correct for that in a world that doesn't really take that into account, I over-prepare for everything. In the professional world, it comes across as me being hyper-competent, which is really fun, but makes me very tired. So when I start in any lab, I talk to everyone on the team, everyone who has ever requested a file, everyone who has ever captured a file, everyone who has moved something onto a server, everyone who has thought of the word server, either in the technical or like the restaurant capacity, like anything. And I talk to everyone and ask them who are they and what do they do and what is important about it and what do they like and what do they not like and what are their pain points. And my favorite question is, what is a thing that you have to do that makes you sigh heavily every time you do it, but you still do it anyway? It's how we got a lot of ergonomic feedback to get back to DT regarding the chiropractic visits that some of their equipment can require, because humans have to run these machines. It needs to be taken into account. But more importantly, it helps me understand the boots on the ground perspective of how we are performing our work and then how that performed work is being received. So it gives me two sides of a narrative there to communicate through. And then using that, I sort of go broader. So I don't care who you are. If we have a 5-minute conversation, I can find 3 pieces of equipment that you should fund that will be within your interests and like an idea of a community engagement program that we can run. It's because I've talked to everyone in my institution 6 times and like have a index going of how much all equipment costs that I update on a quarterly basis. I don't recommend doing any of this. That's why it's not in the slides. I'm just saying. There is an assumption that the people that you're talking to know what you're talking about and are just like you, and they're not, and they don't. So it's a matter of asking really holistic questions and then listening to people's replies and sort of engaging on a human level. And then further, look at how your work is experienced by people. Well, soon to be the Smithsonian, obviously, because they just hired me and I'm really pumped. But at the New York Public Library, our main lab is in Queens. It's in an off-site building. We have no interaction with the public. We don't get to see people experience our work. And it can be very, my brain's buffering, surreal, detached. There's no impact there. So we're just sort of shoveling files into the ocean after a while, right? Like they're still really important. Everything we do is really important, but the gravitas is lost. So you want to take every opportunity you can to see someone gain something out of one thing that you produced. It can help you give a Hallmark original Christmas movie synopsis of the work you do later on down the road. I should have done Hallmark memes, man. Okay, next. Get comfortable leaving the weeds behind. So this is ironic because you are technically speaking a technical audience, at least that would be the understanding. But basically, figure out your talking points. So like find your little story about yourself and then practice on people who you don't work with is the best advice I could give everyone. So it's, I I generally tell people to find their like cocktail party version of their job. That is like, it includes like the weirdest thing you shot, the coolest thing you shot, like the most expensive piece, whatever the fun fact about your program that a 5-year-old or a 85-year-old could connect with in some way that has zero technical aptitude. That's what you trot out when a tour comes through. That's what you lead with when a donor crosses your front door. I am a little proud of this, like, don't force your audience thing, because I came up with it on the spot, and it's pretty dope, so I'm gonna read it aloud. So, don't force your audience to sit through an entire movie when they only expressed interest in watching the trailer. If someone wants details, they'll ask for them. A thing that I've borne witness to on a number of occasions is we live in the weeds as a profession. That is where all of the thought happens. The practice of what we do becomes sense memory. And so that's not the thing that gets communicated. It's the thing that you just spent 45 minutes figuring out the exact right angle and the right, like all of the little details that go into this one shot that you're taking. And inadvertently, if you live in those weeds, that's what comes out of your mouth. And if the person in front of you has no idea what you're talking about, it's very unlikely, I mean, I would say something, but it is very unlikely that they will stop you and redirect you and try again to try to get what they need out of you. So we are not any technical field, but libraries in particular. There's a lot of silos in library land. There's a lot of jargon and privilege associated with this field. And the more we can recognize that as a constructed barrier that we're opting into, and blow the doors open for people to ask naive questions, call what we do scanning, which I do correct people, but you get one chance. Someone asks you a question, you get one chance to make a first impression. If you make them feel dumb, you give them an overly technical answer, they're not gonna hate you for the rest of their life, but they're probably not gonna come back and talk to you again because you just taught them that you can't code switch like that. So the weeds suck, abandon the weeds, unless they ask for it, and then they're initiating a conversation, and that's super fun, right? Don't we love people? This is weird, I'm gonna click forward. Okay, the last bit, I think, is the thing that I do that seems the weirdest to people. I don't get it, but it's fine. So I talk to everyone about it. Like if it has a pulse, I will offer it a tour of our lab. Even if it doesn't have a pulse, like it depends on the circumstance, but we did have like a Halloween thing and there were lots of skeletons in the room, and honestly, if someone wanted, anyway, I would take one for a spin. It is exciting to be excited about the work that you do, and it is, I don't care what you do, it can be interesting to talk about. Anytime I sit down across from someone in a remotely professional capacity, I treat them as a potential recruit into the club of thinking this is cool and talking about it at someone's party. There is a phone in my pocket that can take a very good picture all the way to the back of the room in no light. Like the more digital the world gets, the harder it is to understand the investment of time, money, and labor to produce a digital surrogate of a piece of physical media, or to even just host that digital surrogate of a piece of physical media. The more removed from that we get, like at least people still have photographs in a drawer that they can pull out, but the more removed from that we get, the harder we're gonna have to work to make people understand how hard we have to work at this. We function in a philanthrocapitalistic society, and we have to justify our existence with some frequency outside of the field, inside of the field. So anytime I have an opportunity to give, I have a rota of stories that I give to random people depending on what they're, I'm really coming off as, I am a robot, let's be honest, but anytime you have an opportunity to just tell a fun story, again, if you stay out of the weeds and you just talk about this really cool thing that came this one time and then leapt up and started singing and dancing and it was really weird because it was an 8x10 FSA photograph and you don't know how that happened, like something like that, but real, not that. Or that, I don't know your life. But internally especially, I don't care if you're an org with one other person, if you talk to people in talking points that they can take elsewhere. So again, avoiding the weeds, because if you get into PPI or, you know, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not a photographer. Don't know if that's obvious. My autism goes in the other direction. If you get into the weeds, you're not giving someone anything that they can communicate out, right? So if you tell people stories, they retain stories. They will go tell someone else's story. So I give my cocktail party conversation to the person across from me in the hopes that they will take it and put it in their cocktail party conversation like 2 parties from now. Multi-level marketing, it's a good time. And yeah, give tours, like give all the tours ever. Stage stuff, we did what? We did 5 tours in 4 days at the end of October, which is why these slides were late, because I was exhausted. But most people, maybe they haven't been offered, maybe they've been there in the institution for 30 years and they've interacted with your service all the time, but they've never actually, I don't care if you have a flatbed scanner and a student running it, there's something to see and there's a conversation to be had. And it's very, 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 very hard to get anyone to take the labor, just the time and the labor seriously, even if it's just sticking a piece of paper on an Epson 12,000 XL. That takes effort. And when you extrapolate that across thousands of pieces of paper in a record carton, people will come correctly next time and not over ask for favors, let's say. So to protect your labor, you gotta make it visible, and you do that by just dragging people by their hair through your space and pointing at things and making it fun, but not assault. I don't mean assault. My staff is watching this in Queens right now, and I'm sure they're dying on the floor. That's the last meme. And then, yeah, that's the last slide. So I don't know if that was remotely helpful. Essentially, talk to people about stuff and feel free to be awkward, because hey, look at that. Yeah, I do a lot of advocacy work around neurodivergence and creating neurodiversity-friendly workspaces. I'm very comfortable talking about that. I cited it a few times in my talk, so if anyone has questions. Ooh, it's getting bigger by magic. Are you guys doing that? That's super cool. I learned something today. They made it bigger. Takes a village. I'm recognizing semi-visible labor. As you can see there. Turn around, guys. No, like right. Thank you. Okay, some people, there you go. Yeah. You're welcome. Okay, question, what's going on? Yeah, sure, why not? I have so many myself.
You have a question, Peter?
Y'all know this is a laser pointer? It's really cool. Features and benefits.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your talk. That was really fun.
Yeah.
Love a meme-heavy talk. All right, so my question as a semi-extrovert working with a whole bunch of introverts who get very scared when you tell them that you're bringing people through your space. How do you handle that? How do you get your team on board with actually talking to people and interacting and not going and hiding when you bring people through?
Yep. So I will say my lab is a lot of artists, so generally they're pretty chill. However, we did a bunch of really like high-level tours. Like development came through, the vice president of finance came. Like it was they're doing a big fundraise push for us, and we actually programmed demos for the first time. So we like put together a 2-hour slate of programming. It was. I should sleep more. I'm still tired. Essentially, so. It kind of comes down to what I said about over-preparing if I'm going to a restaurant. If you can, so in an accessibility world, they're called like social narratives or social stories. So if you are a person who might have different sensory needs and you want to, say, visit, actually Smithsonian's really good at it, and that's cool because I'm going to work for them soon. You will likely find areas on their website where they give you very straightforward, plain language about, so if you walk in on your right-hand side, there are these things available for you, and if you need to take time and space, or if you need a dark area, or you need a quiet area, really breaks down the step-by-step realities of being, experiencing a thing. For tours and stuff like that, so I am actually very introverted. This is a very effective way of navigating the world for me. I collapse when I get back to my room, but I can do this because I know what's expected of me. And so if you're having people visit or you're putting people in front of donor, if you put someone on the spot, they're gonna freeze and like turtle and hide under their bench. I would do it too. That's really not chill. I do it to my staff all the time. They're probably laughing right now. My bad, sorry guys. But I have a disability. You can't, anyway, what's your excuse? But yeah, if you tell people what would be valuable for them to do, explain, if we're having larger groups through, we'll go through the Delta cabinets and find interesting materials and have just like, they don't have to do work until the tour gets there. They just keep, it's like the Disney version, or what do we call it? The Carousel of Progress version of the work that we do. People need, it's a lot easier to meet expectations if those expectations are clearly stated. And we don't love doing that as a society, but definitely not as a profession. So if you're comfortable articulating what you need from someone, which you really should be if you're asking something of someone, then I find it's a lot easier to get people to meet those expectations. Did that get there? Cool, yay, landed, killed it.
So it strikes me that you spoke extensively about oral communication, in-person meetings, demonstrations in person. Has NYPL done anything in other forms of communication or media, making videos, making audio, making websites that do the same advocacy work that you're talking about in convincing and demonstrating and explaining what your team does, other than this oral communication that you've covered very, very well?
Thanks. I thought you were going to ask me a biased question just for reciprocity. So yeah, we had a really great collections photographer. His name is Adam Golfer. Pour one out for Adam. He moved on to cooler work, but he is a very gifted videographer. Before he left, I asked him to make us a commercial. So we have a video. It's very romantically lit. It is not meant to be a factual representation of like the realities of beat by beat what we do. It is like a tight 2.5, 3 minutes of just person pushing cart down hallway with Augusta Savage bust seated atop it, and then the bust being moved to a copy stand, and then, you know, hands blowing away loose dust, and then, you know, adjusting the, it's a Tesla commercial. Does Tesla do commercials? No, it's an Apple commercial. It's an Apple, it's like an early Apple, it's like an 80s Apple commercial. There's no like dancing with an iPod. You remember those? Anyway, I share that video with development, with anyone in all the curators, the research centers that is meant for public use to, again, it's a little bite-sized, look what we do, isn't it cool? I maintain a document of all narrative language I have ever drafted for any pot of money or proposal that I have ever pulled together that's like program specific and not project specific. So I can just redact what people shouldn't see and share it accordingly. And we have a deck that is just program info. So it's not, again, it avoids the weeds. We can curate accordingly, but so for development to go out and make me money or find me money and bring it back to me and put it in front of me and high five me, which is super cool when that happens, I have to tell them what to say. And it's gonna be really hard to get them really hyped about being proactive and talking about us and our needs, because it's a big library and a lot of people need stuff, if I'm not making it as easy as possible. So I have worked in social media marketing in the past, and I basically put together like a little, we have a little brand kit, essentially, to try to make things easier. My goal is to not do anything that will fall apart if the minute I step away to the Smithsonian, which I guess is like next week. But no program should like live or die based on the person who is capable of giving good talk. So the more that you can architect literally anything to hand to the next person, rather than just the ability for them to blame on you whatever is convenient, which is the best gift anyone can give, the better.
Question from,
I have a question, I'm sorry.
go ahead, Pete.
Last question? Okay, I'm sorry. Let's do virtual first, please.
All right, question from virtual. Do you find yourself balancing the narrative that you and your team of imaging professionals want to broadcast about your work against the overall communications of a larger organization? Or do you feel that the department and organization are aligned, and what efforts have you done to make sure that those are aligned?
That's a cool question. We are aligned now. It's not that, so I've been at NYPL, and it's a shame to leave before my 3-year anniversary, but I'm really hyped about the Smithsonian job. I love a meme, I'm sorry, guys. So I started right before the pandemic, and then for like the first 5 months of operation, we were closed, which I know what everyone's kitchen looks like now, so that's super cool. And then we came back and everyone was working part-time. So it was a very odd period of time anyway. And this is why I was reluctant to get too specific about my stuff in this presentation. Every institution, every leader, every senior leader, everyone's different. And some people are really into what you do and you're totally safe and you can be out and loud about it. And some people, there's an axe somewhere and it's gonna go in one direction or another. So before I got to the lab, as I understand it, it was one of those axier periods. So there was a bit of an invisibility keeps us safe policy for my program. And it's totally true, invisibility keeps you safe. It also pretty much keeps you this. And I'm not good at safe. It took a while. It took a lot of getting very pushy and insistent that we do valuable work. I pulled together a lot of data. This is how long it takes us to shoot this one thing. Like, getting people educated about the realities of the work that we did was complicated. Now I don't have to go out of my way for it, and now senior leadership has talking points from, like, I have backup. And part of that is I have brought in money. I'm good at that, but I'm good at that because I tell people why we're worth funding. And I think they're probably the same skill set. I'm good at marketing us, but yeah, it's a matter of humanizing a thing without a face that is way more technical and complicated than anyone has any inclination to understand, particularly at a senior leadership level in a cultural heritage institution. They got other stuff going. And explaining it and its intersection with your org's mission statement and strategic initiatives and whatever buzzwords they're using this cycle, tying that into your program and like nice little bite-sized, family-friendly frozen meals that can be reheated and served up easily when you don't have time to cook. I don't remember where that started, but it ended really interesting. Don't know if that was a thing. Okay, F in the chat for that. That was weird. Cool. Got a thumbs up. Love that.
My question got absorbed into the last answer, so I'll just.
Okay, that last answer took over like a whole village, to be fair, so.
All right. I'm sorry? Oh.
There are standards.
I don't have a question at this point because I got it absorbed by the last,
But now you're standing there.
but I'm standing here.
Ask me something.
Yeah,
Look, they're
so
right there. I
I'm-
found
I'm-
it.
I'm gonna clap my hands.
Oh, okay.